how prevalent is the around you? Not just the people maybe don't do guns, but how prevalent is if you're black, guns equal bad things, so I don't want anything to do with them? How prevalent is that? Is it very prevalent?
It's probably about 50-50 these days.
Was it worse before?
Yeah, I think so. I think the pandemic changed a lot of people's minds about guns and opened their willingness to have the conversation about gun ownership. Just the certain fears about what happens if society were to drop down a couple of rungs. Because, they saw how the police tried to respond to the riot activity that followed the George Floyd protests, right? And I want to be clear, right, that there were plenty of very valid and legitimate protests, and I still stick by the term peaceful protests. Mm-hmm. But there are a group of people that always, use any gathering, any large gathering, as a springboard to mayhem, right? And this was no different. And so some of my friends, they saw how the police struggled to maintain control in some of those instances, and they were like, "Well, what happened if the police were over there trying to fight those guys, and something was going on over here?" We came to the realization that you'd probably be on your own for at least a little while.
What is going on, everybody? 'Tis I, the enigma of the gun airwaves, Miyanovich, welcoming you to Season 3 of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast, where unprecedented perspectives are packed into the cargo hold for the LGO Lens spaceship Voyagio.
That's fucking Italian.
Don't believe that evolution is possible with guns and public safety in America? It's already happening, y'all. Minds are evolving. Think guns versus public safety is the only game in town, do ya? Think culture war is the big boss, do ya? Then keep your ass in the past. Everyone else, all aboard! Hello, everybody out there in Liberal Gun Owners Land. It's Miyanovich again. Got another banger, big timer. Today, I am happy to introduce you to Liberal Gun Owners developer Linwood Johnson. Linwood has been with us for a while, and he is thoroughly involved in the development of liberal gun owners through what we call our firearms development group. Succinctly, he has been involved in establishing our company trainings, which are currently on pause due to financial challenges. These company trainings are a very, very important part of what we do for multiple reasons. Too many reasons to get into today. But Linwood is a part of both our main discussion group, I would say, our main developmental discussion group, which is a discussion group that has for years now been basically going around the clock. So we have a development group chat that basically almost runs 24 hours a day, and it is a goodly number of us who are in there. And we are chatting constantly about guns and funny things and guns and then other funny things. And Linwood is a part of all of this. Linwood is an African-American man who lives close to the great city of Chicago. Although if you are into guns, maybe Illinois and Chicago aren't so great. But he has a fantastically Linwood has a fantastically nuanced perspective, and it's a nuance that's badly needed, so I'm glad that we are bringing it on the podcast today so we can introduce you guys more to, just like with Joshua Bacon, more to the kind of mentalities that are in the liberal gun owners' jazz behind the curtain. That's so important, and I want to let you guys in on it more and more, and I want to let you guys in on that a little bit so you can see how things roll with us. So without further ado, please join me for this very cool conversation with LGO developer Linwood Johnson. So, Linwood Johnson, welcome to the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast, man. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Randy. Thank you for inviting me, man. I'm honored to be here, man. Looking forward to it.
I've been wanting to have you on since the beginning. One of the things that I have to do is I have to try to break ground. So I have to get big names and try to fight after getting these big names too. But the other thing that people don't realize is we have a lot of really important perspectives in our own development group in LGO. And So I want to finally start bringing more of that out. I just had Bacon on, and now I want to have you on to start to pick the Linwood Johnson brain and introduce people to Linwood Johnson. So I don't think we've ever had this conversation. We might have. How did you get into guns? What was the thing that got you into guns?
It's been about a dozen years or so. Lived in a community, small community, and became aware that there was actual crimes that were taking place. Because before that, I'm like, crime doesn't happen. If you're not in the city, I don't live too far from Chicago, right? And we know what reputation Chicago has, and we could talk about that a little bit more. Obviously the reputation doesn't always live up to the reality, or the reality doesn't live up to the reputation, whichever way you see it. But in the small community I lived in, I was in Plainfield at the time, and I'm like, oh, there's actual crime here, and then started thinking about it. And then my kids were going through a phase because they were teenagers, and they were going through a phase. They were dealing with some guys who I didn't cotton to too much. I'm like, these guys tried to show back up at the wrong time. I'd have to do something. I'd have to be prepared to defend our house, right? And so that kind of got me on the path. And obviously, you're not going to shoot everybody that shows up, right? That's ridiculous. I mean, I know that's one of the things that people think. All gun people just waiting to shoot somebody, right? That's the first thing from my mind. But when you start to think about things like the home invasions, right, and you think about how those go down, and you really learn about how they go down, you recognize that you can't do it all with your fist. Just can't. Or it may come at such a high price with your body that you may not want to pay that price. So that's what got me into looking into guns. And as I and start to understand what the community was like, and saw some of the good stuff and a lot of the goofy stuff, right? Of course, that you fall into the conversation of, Republicans and right-wing conservative types, believe in gun ownership. And I'm always the kind of guy that, and this applies to like every aspect of life. I question most things, right? I'm like, well, why would that be? Why does that have to be a thing? And so I looked into it, as I looked at them, I'm like, I can clearly see where, I can have a gun. There's nothing that stops me from having a gun. And doesn't mean I got to, shoot somebody, right? It just means I'm, prepared to defend my home if I need to do that. And if I need a gun to back me up without shooting somebody, that's great. If I get forced to shoot somebody, well, I should be prepared to understand exactly what that means in detail. And so that was kind of, what got me started down that path, and kind of brought me to kind of beginning to learn more things and try to reach out and connect into certain networks. And it was a while before I found liberal gun owners. I hadn't even considered it really. I mean, till one day I was looking at Facebook and, there was groups. I'm like, oh, what are any gun groups? They're gun groups. Most of them are full of batshit crazy people. I won't say full of, but I think you study a lot of the human psychology stuff. I know you talk about it often, right? And so what you find, and my experience has been, is that the people with some of the most insane ideas are the ones that talk the loudest and the most.
Indeed. Amen.
Right? And so you see a lot of them, but then you look at the kind of the crazy things people write, and then you look at some of the people that like it. Right, they get crazy comments will get a crazy post will get dozen comments and 150 or 200 likes. You're like, why would somebody like this stuff? What is it? What is it about what this person said that makes somebody go, yeah, I co-sign this. Let me put my name here so that Facebook can record me as liking this batshit crazy comment. I'm like. So you look at, and some of these people, they look fairly normal because Facebook shows you, right? You can go see who liked it, right? You go and sometimes, and God knows, I've probably spent way too much time in my life over the last 10 years reading Facebook comments and looking at some of the people that even like the crazy ones, but they look like really normal people.
Yeah. Well, other than everything you just said made me think about 100 things. Other than the batshit people, we'll talk about the batshit people. So, you first got into guns and you were like, well, there's going to be a lot of Republicans, and why? But is it all Republicans? And why do I need to think it's that way? What were your experiences like as a black man, and you're getting into guns for the first time? Did you run into typical wingnut right wing people at all when you started buying guns and shooting guns? Did you run into that?
Not really. Not really. I mean, what I found is that if you enter a space, and this applies a lot of places, right? But certainly applies in most of the gun world. If you enter a space and you know what to expect, you know that they know what to expect, right? And you kind of link up based on those expectations, you can all the other stuff falls by the wayside, right? I mean, people will try to play you if you don't know what you're talking about. That's why, I try to, I won't use do my research, right? That's so overused, right? But I try to educate myself, right? So that I know, kind of what's up from down when I go in. And the other thing about me is I'm totally cool with saying, hey, this is what I think I know. And here's some things I don't know, right? Maybe you can help me piece these things together. How does this work? How does that work? How does you do this thing, right? And so, and I had that experience. I mean, there's a gun shop. There's a couple of gun shops close by here, but there's one that's been around a long time. And, I won't use the name, but they're notorious for being extremely unhelpful to everybody. You talk about FUD plus, right? It's like they have a license to be the best FUDs in the nation, right? But anyway, they so when you walk in, they were just, one of the guys was like a real sourpuss. He just didn't really want to help, but he had hired a guy and a girl who were actually really decent and willing to share information, and I became friendly with them, and the guy he kind of showed me some things, and kind of talked to me about some things in terms of different manufacturers and his experiences with them. Because I just went in at a time when I wasn't in a particular area and they didn't have a crowd, so you could have a reasonable conversation with him, and he actually helped me, and he kind of helped to guide me in terms of what things I look for in terms of my own knowledge and education.
But you're not in an area where like you're bordering up on the rural reality and like the Trump reality and all that stuff.
No. It's still very suburban. Racial wise, there's a heavy dose of African Americans in the area. If I had to guess, I'd say 15%. There's also a very heavy dose of Hispanics in the area.
Okay.
And they're probably in the 30% range, right? Because I live right next door to a city called Aurora, and I can look it up, but Aurora's got a very heavy Hispanic population, very heavy. So the overall area, they see a good variety of people. And, I think overall people, tend to try to get along, right? Nobody wants to be a prick all the time, right? And so they tend to try to get along, and but then later on, they actually built a new gun store, came to town, and they were like, hey, everybody come on in. We got, guns, we got a range, we got classes. I mean, they, and they're a chain. I won't say they're nationwide, but they're in probably 13, 14 states. And so, they built their business off of trying to, be an entree path for anybody who wants to learn. And so I frequent them far more often. Matter of fact, I don't even go to the other store anymore.
And you do shooting over there. Like, have you used that regularly over the past however many years they've been there?
Oh yeah. I mean, I joined their membership thing when they first opened, and I got a reasonably good deal on it. So that's and I've maintained that over the years. So I use it, probably not as much as I would like to, but in good times I'm there once or twice a month. In bad times maybe 2-3 times a year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ain't that the way? I have a shooting lane 100 yards from where I'm sitting right now, and I don't take it for granted. I know in my mind it's super rare,
right?
And I need to take more advantage of it. But there's so much work I personally need to do that has nothing to do with the gun itself, but has to do with guns, that by the time I have free time to go grab a gun and run out there, I don't want to deal with guns. I'm done with guns. I want to do something else.
Yeah.
So I think we all have that. We all have that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And you're bringing nuance into this. You said your guy likes to question things, so you're bringing nuance into this immediately, and so that's an interesting person to be, because it doesn't seem that the gun reality has very much of it, even though it does have probably more than we think, certainly more than the narratives like to paint. But you're bringing questioning into this. You're bringing openness into it.
Yep, and I'll share with you too that there was a time, even though I grew up with guns in our house. I mean, my father always kept a couple of pistols around, okay? And I'll talk to you later about my first shots. And I had an uncle, actually, he's still around, actually. He owned so many guns. So this is actually my great uncle. So he's my dad's uncle on his mom's side. He owned so many guns. But as, growing up as a black man in America, and then living in suburban Chicago, but being, close enough to see or hear frequently about, all of the shootings and killings that happened in Chicago, I fell into the anti-gun camp big time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I had an NRA guy call me up one time out of the blue, just cold out of the blue. This is probably around 2006 or 7. I think it was before Obama got elected. And he would ask me for a donation. And I was like, I'm not your guy. Why'd you call me? Yeah. Right. And I mean, and we had a heated debate for about 15, 20 minutes because, again, another day I didn't have nothing to do. Right. So he called me and we chatted, and that was back in the day when you would take calls from numbers you didn't know, because it might have been an important call or something.
Yeah. You felt important a little bit.
Right. But yeah, I was hardcore anti-gunner, man, because I was like, too many people dying.
Yeah. Well, that's it's understandable. I don't look down on people or judge them, especially for black people to do that. Because there's this finger lock between high urban crime and the inner city African American communities, and the reality of that, which is atrocious and a major problem, and something we try to address. And I think maybe in some ways we help, in other ways we haven't really gotten to the root of it. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. And then there's the need for self-defense that either that aspect of crime or the other aspects of violent crime generate. And so African Americans are between like a rock and a hard place,
right,
that the white suburban person, frankly, isn't. Like African Americans, at least in the urban reality, I would say certain urban realities, it's not an easy place to be. So that happens a lot. I come across that. There are black people that are like, I don't want anything to do with those guns. We don't need more guns. More guns equal more problems for young African American males in the city. And that's not wrong. I mean, it's partially on the right track, I would say. But then there are people like yourself or Chad King, who at one point, you're a black man and you're headed in that direction because you have a good heart. And you're like, I don't want these African American boys or young men hurt anymore.
Right.
But then you start, you see it in your own face.
Right.
And you change because what I would say is your skin color doesn't matter. We're all Homo sapiens, and we've been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. And when you're especially a man and you have people to care about, and that shit comes to your door, or you see it,
right,
it's your inner workings are going to take over, man.
That's right.
It's a tough place to be. So give me a little bit more of your perspective, maybe a little more thoughts on that, because you are so close to one of the worst areas on earth for young black men shooting one another. Yeah. And there's a need for self-defense. What's that like for you?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd say there is I see myself as, let me say it differently. I asked myself the question, and this does not only apply to guns, right? It applies to other things too, right? Just crime in general. And I asked myself, so what's different? What separates any other individual from the group, right? In terms of expectations of committing crimes, expectation of being a crime victim, right? And then it kind of dawned on me. I'm like, but I've never done those things. And if I think about the different people that run in my community and my crowd, I mean, because that's one thing that I tell you, I was fortunate to come into when I started in the tech world. The company I worked with, they had a very healthy African American community representation, and they were intentional about getting together and sharing knowledge, sharing information, teaching each other about the history of blacks in the corporate place. And so that gave me a body of people to look at. I'm like, I don't know anybody who's done these kind of crimes, right? I'm like, so those statistics really don't represent the whole by far. And I'm like, that same concept really can apply to most things, right? Because the other thing too, when you look at, from an American perspective, right? I've had times where, you go into a store and people follow you around. They think you're going to steal something or whatever. Now, is that only because of my race or because of race and age at the time? Potentially. Absolutely. Right.
Or cops follow you to the LGO gun range in Indiana from the hotel.
Yes, absolutely.
By the way, everybody, that happened. Linwood, we were at a developmental training and he was in his car. We all drove from the hotel to the range and the fucking cracker cop fucking followed him to the range.
Yeah, that definitely happened. Yep, it did. it did.
We laugh at it because it was so fucking stupid and like Gomer. It was so predictable. We were like, my God, man.
Yeah. I mean,
anyway,
he was not a jerk about it, but I did have to engage with him. That was not an optional engagement.
Yeah. We were in the middle of miles of fucking cornrows. So just so everybody knows, that's where we were. Yeah. And we were friends with those cops. We knew those cops, at least that department. But it was all cornrows, man. You might have been the only black dude for miles.
For a long ways around, right?
Oh my God. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. I think people needed to know that because that's an all-time story.
That's important. Yeah. But yeah, so, and so, I say I've been I've been stopped by cops for stupid stuff before, right? Or almost stopped, right? But, the thing that landed on me was I'm not stereotyped. You're not stereotyped, right? We're individual people. Now, do stereotypes come into play with how, we get judged or get, assessed by somebody that's stranger to us? Obviously, yes. But that's not the only thing that has to go into the assessment, right? And you can take steps to change the outcome of that assessment if you feel like there's a need to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I could give a rat's ass about what people think most of the time. Mm-hmm. Really, really and truly do, until they do something that impacts me in some way, right? But outside of that, if there's a need to, change perspective about me as an individual, I will engage them and engage them in a way that, shows them I'm at least your equal, right? At least your peer in a lot of ways, right? And and I use that when I need to, right? But like I said, it does take a certain amount of energy to do it. And it takes a certain amount of energy to keep it up. So like I said, I don't use it more than I need to.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the brain for humans. We don't have enough brain power to live a life where we don't take shortcuts.
Absolutely.
And, anybody that thinks we're going to be able to eliminate shortcuts, which is, what does it equal? Implicit bias.
Yes.
Biases. We're all doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Are African Americans eating the biggest part of that shit sandwich? And yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Of course. Mm-hmm. It takes effort, and a lot of people just can't go there. They can't place the effort there. One of the things that's coming to my mind right now is, I moved into the edge of the ghetto in Pittsburgh on purpose to get my head straight in life and understand. Right. I try to do that. As you can see, I go into difficult places and do things that are like impossible.
Yeah, right.
Because I want to see, right? And we lived across the street. I lived in an apartment, in a loft style apartment.
Okay.
That was across the street from what used to be an old gas station. And that gas station building was purchased by an old friend of mine named George, and George is African American, and he ran his karate dojo out of that building for years. I think he still does. And everybody that went into that dojo was a respectful person. Right? I mean, George was a high level, nuanced, respectful human, right?
Okay.
But I'm also in a neighborhood that's got a shooting and arson and just shit, right?
Sure.
There's good people, there's bad people. And shit breaking into my cars and stuff. But I came out of my car, and I guess I had my wallet in my pocket or something like that. And I was rifling through my pockets, and my wallet flipped out and was laying on the sidewalk. And there was right outside of my door, like you open my loft apartment door, and there's a city bus stop right there.
Okay.
So people would be sitting like on my stoop and like leaning up against my cars and to wait for the bus.
Were you aware that you dropped your wallet?
No.
Okay.
Because I just thought it was in my coat.
Okay.
And I just took my coat off. It was winter, right? And we're in the house. We're in the apartment doing stuff. I think we had one kid at the time, my wife and I.
Okay.
I was in there, just cooking dinner or whatever, knocking on the door. Right. Okay. So I go over to the door. One of George's students, this black kid from the neighborhood, standing there with my wallet.
Wow.
Hey man, is this your wallet? It's like, yeah, that's my wallet, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
It's all about people. It's whoever it is. It's each person is going to be different.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And when my parents be like, would my stepdad be like, oh my God, don't ever drop your wallet in Wilkinsburg. Right. Yeah, he would definitely say that.
Sure.
He would definitely say that.
I mean, and generally it's probably not the worst advice.
Sure. Yeah. Don't drop your fucking wallet anywhere in the city.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a black neighborhood or white, just don't do it.
Right.
But anyway, you definitely said you're not like you're not a stereotype. When I think of you, I'm like, I don't think about the skin color part. I'm like, you're not a stereotype for a liberal. And that's the best part. Like, you're not going to go running off into like snap judgments. You question things, you slow down, and we need that.
I try to. I mean, that's one of the things that, I got indoctrinated too quickly when I entered the Facebook world was the way that misinformation could flow. And if you blindly believed everything that somebody put on the internet, you'd be a damn fool. Because there's so much bad stuff to get put out there all the time.
How prevalent is the around you? Not just the people maybe don't do guns, but how prevalent is if you're black, guns equal bad things, so I don't want anything to do with them? How prevalent is that? Is it very prevalent?
It's probably about 50-50 these days.
Was it worse before?
Yeah, I think so. I think the pandemic changed a lot of people's minds about guns and opened their willingness to have the conversation about gun ownership. Just the certain fears about what happens if society were to drop down a couple of rungs. Because, they saw how the police tried to respond to the riot activity that followed the George Floyd protests, right? And I want to be clear, right, that there were plenty of very valid and legitimate protests, and I still stick by the term peaceful protests. Mm-hmm. But there are a group of people that always, use any gathering, any large gathering, as a springboard to mayhem, and this was no different. And so some of my friends, they saw how the police struggled to maintain control in some of those instances, and they were like, "Well, what happened if the police were over there trying to fight those guys, and something was going on over here?"
Yeah,
we came to the realization that you'd probably be on your own for at least a little while.
Yeah,
all right, but honestly, then that got around to the conversation, because I used that as an opportunity to point out that police response is not always guaranteed any place. And even if they come as fast as they can, a lot of times that still means 5 or 6 minutes. If somebody's intent on launching a violent attack, 5 or 6 minutes is a freaking eternity, right? And you got to be prepared to deal with that either physically or, with use of a weapon. Right? So anyway, yeah. So I say the willingness to have the gun conversation definitely changed with the depth of the riots that came after the George Floyd protests.
Yeah, and there's from my perspective, you may in your proximate area seen like a surge or maybe a reasonable increase or just like a noticeable increase. My perspective is like the wider perspective. I'm tuned into the nation and all the people that I know all over the place. And there's a fire for this particular right in the African American community currently. It's chilled out a little bit, like maybe within the past year, but there's a fire for the Second Amendment in the Black community. I wouldn't even want to say the Second Amendment. That's one way of interpreting it, is the Second Amendment.
Yeah, right.
The Second Amendment is a commentary on a greater phenomenon, but the armed self-defense phenomenon. There's a fire for the right itself and claiming it and being involved in it in the African American community that, to me, doesn't just rival these toxic patriot screaming eagle nuts like the typical people that we think of as gun rights absolutists. We think they have a fire, like, whoa, they're the ones that are like the mark of the fire but I see the one that in the African American community is far more dedicated, because, and what I brought this up before with Chad, it's like you compress that spring for so long in the human, which is what has happened with Black people in armed self-defense. Once that lets go, right? So I see a little bit or that actually happening.
Yeah, agreed.
And that has political implications, which is a long conversation. It has implications for the Democrats. It has a lot of implications. But I honestly, I wanted to ask you this also. I don't really see it. It's chilled out, but I don't see it changing. Do you see it changing?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, there are, it's funny because you brought up the Second Amendment specifically, and I would say that while Black gun ownership has certainly increased, Black support for the Second Amendment conversation hasn't increased as much, right? And you probably get the gist of that, because it's just it comes with a whole different set of conversations and responsibilities and acknowledgments, right? That a lot of people are not really ready to cross over to.
Yeah, and I'll underlay what you just laid out there with the thing that I have to deal with the most, and that is this. So liberalism isn't exactly what everyone thinks it is. It's really powerful. It's really important. It's really universal in what it's supposed to be. But the issues is that it's nothing if it isn't tied into a high level of intellectual processing and questioning. That it's born out of that. It's born out of the Enlightenment and the European Enlightenment. It's born out of it. So you can't really have it unless there's a high dedication to trying to understand things at a higher level, processing things using the best intellectual power that you can, because that's one of our powers as a species. We need to be able to do that. But the problem is that tradition is sprung out of white racists. Period. People who saw there's a legitimate man, and that legitimate man is going to be white and smart and a landowner and a Christian. That's what an English gentleman is what a legitimate man is.
That's right.
And so the problem is that liberalism itself was generated by that. And so that's part of the problem. What I find is interesting is the principles defeat that. And we just give it 100 years, and the principles are pointing back at that and saying, well, based upon the principles that we believe in, that whole thing that you laid out in the beginning with white people, white gentlemen are the legitimate person, that's bullshit. And I think, so then we have the founding documents are also an extension of that. And so I can see why Black people don't want to give legitimacy to the Second Amendment, because it springs out of that background. And but that's why I'm trying to educate people to say, listen, Liberalism did spring out of that. But if you throw it out, if you throw these things out, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. These white racist dudes defeated themselves by stating principles that were universal. They beat themselves by doing that. So, let that happen. Let them be defeated, but don't get rid of the intellectual needs.
Right. Agreed.
Oh, of course, it doesn't. How could it be any other way? Women weren't allowed to learn. Black men weren't allowed to learn. So how can anybody else generate the intellectual and universal principles that are behind all of this? It couldn't have gone any other way.
It could not have. Agreed.
So let's not throw it away. Let's just go, look, we have this now. Let's all use it. Fuck those guys. Let's keep moving. So, but I'm bringing it up because the emotional process that a black person is going to have to go through to just do what I just did is not going to be easy. I can do it because I'm 6'4", I'm white. I mean, I'm a little bit a little bit a Native American, but I've had a mostly privileged life. So I can say that. I can go, look, fuckers, this is that easy, but it's not that easy for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, and you're absolutely right. And on top of that, there's a lot of new teaching coming about, which points to the fact that, hey, well, Second Amendment was really born out of the need for the Southern whites to arm up against the slaves and to knock down slave rebellions and try to keep, and because it had nothing at all to do with the war. And they are pumping that loudly. There's a historian, I think her name is Dr. Carol Anderson. She wrote a book a couple years ago. That's her message. And I got refreshed. I got reminded of that just this weekend because I found that a new podcast out by a guy who works for The Trace, and it's called The Gun Machine. You might want to delete that because you don't want to send nobody there. But anyway.
That's fine. If we're going to shit on it, then we leave it.
I'm only about 2 episodes or 3 episodes into it. I listened to some of it yesterday. Yeah. It's, he has a very heavy dose, and the guy, he's a mixed race guy. He calls himself a black man, and he acknowledges his mixed racial heritage. But he had one episode had Dr. Anderson on, and they really jumped on that whole thing about this was done for to put down slave rebellions and to stop the abolitionists. And I'm thinking the whole time, so when are we going to talk about how that affects us today, right? I mean, I don't refute what she says. Mm-hmm. I don't, and at all. I'm sure I respect her education. Mm-hmm. I respect her process she's been through to achieve what she's achieved. And so I'm sure she knows exactly what she's talking mm-hmm. about. But I don't think that puts us in a point where we say, well, okay, then no guns for me, mm-hmm. right? How does that help me today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than familiar with her, and I'm more than familiar with that whole deal. And I think there are elements of the truth in it, but I think that the way that it's being put out there is almost entirely bullshit.
Okay.
I'll
take your word for it.
I think that it's true that those things were in people's minds. I even think that it was in the mind of the Northern founders, that mm-hmm. it was something that they would talk about behind closed doors. But I don't see anything in her book, information that's out there that negates the prime reasoning for the Second Amendment being about King George. Okay. I don't see anything about, and this is the problem. So this is why nuance is important. Both of those concepts are important, I think. But it's whenever racial activism is capturing the empirical reality and pushing it aside using, any activist does this. It's not even the racial.
Sure.
Using beliefs and ideology to capture empirical facts and sell the reality as something else. When you do that, you're making things worse.
I agree.
So that's why the woman's work is important, I think, as she's pointed this out, but her capturing the whole phenomenon and defining it as what she said is one of the worst examples of activism and scholarship, as one of the worst examples of it. So I see it as a giant negative.
And that's what I'm feeling too about this particular podcast after being a couple episodes in. It feels like activism is coded in, hey, I'm a gun guy. I like guns. I had a career where I carried guns, blah, blah, blah. But here's the reality, right? But like I said, I'm going to give it some more episodes before I reset any particular conclusion on what guys.
I think everybody needs to investigate what the woman is saying and what these people are saying about how because, you know, Chad brings it up. Chad brings it up. Chad King brings it up.
Okay.
To me, he goes a little bit too far.
Okay.
And that's something I talk to him about. I don't have to have that conversation, you know, but I think these are important points. But this is what I know. And later on this is great that we're getting into this. I didn't even think we were going to, but this is why it's good to have you. And there's this phenomenon, that phenomenon I call Fernfervinism. That's my term for it. And I'm going to actually do a podcast and probably a paper on Fernfervinism.
Okay.
And it isn't just black racial activists that are doing this. It's left of center activists that are doing this. And it's a problem. So here's the anecdote that I have. And I hope you will at least afford me the time to do this because you're giving me the opportunity and I'd really like to do it with you because this is the new groundbreaking thing. This is the thing I've waited for a year and a half. I wasn't going to say it, but I'm going to say it now. In about 2004, I was doing a number of things, but I was working in the HIV and AIDS community, teaching Tai Chi and meditation at a wellness center that dealt with only people with HIV and AIDS.
Okay.
And it was during a giant snowstorm in the winter, and there was like 3 feet of snow on the ground. And my truck there was ice everywhere. The salt trucks hadn't been out. I made the decision to go and teach my Tai Chi classes on foot. Right. So I walked a couple miles to my first one, which was a private lesson. And then I walked over to the wellness center, and it was, you know, like a Snowmageddon-y type thing. So I'm walking 2 miles to get to my first place. Then I walk about a mile-ish and a half to get to the wellness center. It's cold as hell, man. By the time I'm going to the wellness center, it's 29 degrees and I'm sloshed, right? And it is cold. But I believe in what I'm doing and I really want to go and help the people because that's what I'm there for.
Okay.
I don't get paid very much to do it. So I walk, I do my first one, I walk, and I go to do the wellness center. Right before the wellness center, there's a situation where there's a bus shelter where people can wait in the bus shelter, right?
Yeah.
And there's no sidewalk to walk on because there's 3 feet of snow and they haven't got to it. So but around the bus shelter, they cut out the snow around the bus shelter. So I'm like walking up the street towards the bus shelter in the road with salt and wet all over me, and I'm freezing. And I'm going to teach people that have AIDS.
Yeah.
And I get to the bus shelter and there's a cut around the bus shelter that I start to go in and around because I think I'm going to be able to get to the crosswalk, but I can't because it's blocked. So I then cut back around in front, I come back around and I get in front of the bus shelter for like 1 second before I jaywalk across the street.
Okay.
So I'm walking, going to teach people with AIDS, and I'm soaking wet and freezing. And I cut in front of this bus shelter. And in the bus shelter are 2 20-some-year-old black girls. And for 1 second while I wait for a car to go by before I jaywalk, it looks like I'm standing in front of the bus shelter and I cut in front of them to stand there while the bus comes up and I'm going to get on the bus first. That's what's in their mind. For me, all I did was cut around the bus shelter, took one pause while the car went, and then I just walked across.
Right.
These girls are motherfucking me.
Okay.
Going, you white man, white, you think you're going to white motherfucker, white, you're going to cut in front of us, get in front of the bus, fucking get on the bus. You're not going to history of slavery, white guy. Right?
Okay.
I mean, I legit... That snap was how long I was in front of the bus. I was across the street and they were still going, and white guy, motherfucking white guy. I'm going to teach people with AIDS in the middle of a snowstorm. I'm freezing. I'm soaking wet. I'm not getting paid well. I'm hungry because I don't think I ate. And they're going, it's white guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is Fernfervinism.
Okay.
It is when somebody is so ideologically bent on something being the truth, they're not fucking interested in what the facts of you're just a target for what they're projecting.
A convenient target.
Correct. And all you do is trigger this, and it doesn't matter. You could be on your way to give open heart surgery to a fucking Jewish grandmother, and you're saving it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, and it's not just these black girls. It's not just, it's people who are dedicated to something so much because of trauma, and they just don't fucking care about the facts. Now Fernfervinism is fucking liberalism up everywhere. Activists. And this is what this woman's book about. Now the Second Amendment is about the slaves. Right. Capturing the entire meaning of it as that. Yeah. It is professionalized Fernfervinism. And this is the last thing I'll say. I'll get your thoughts on it. This doesn't help. So we believe that everything the Republicans or the conservatives say is wrong. But the thing is, they can see our weakness. They say shit that's wrong all the time, but they can also see our weaknesses.
Yep.
And this Fernfervinism, they're all over it. So when they, what's the term I'm looking for here? When they criticize wokeism, many people on our side say, well, what their criticism is basically is that they just, anything they don't like is wokeism, which is true. That they do that. That's their kind of Fernfervinism deal. But they also are seeing shit that we're doing that's bullshit. And this Fernfervinism is one of those things. So when they criticize wokeism, that's because a good percentage of it is a projection, right? Yeah. And so this is the thing I'm noticing. Do you notice it as well? What are your thoughts on it?
Absolutely. You see that. I mean, and I hate that both sides of it, but I will. Both sides do it. They lock in to some tiny set of facts, and then they use that to extrapolate a larger point that they really, really want everybody to believe in. But as you say, it doesn't help. And when I hear you say it doesn't help, I equate that to mean it drives divisiveness, right? It really further separates the sides, right? Whether it's left or right, whether it's, gun neutral or gun supporter versus anti-gunner, right? Whether it's black or white in some cases, right? It just, further drives the divisiveness. And it drives, it puts people on the defensive because you feel the need to correct the misinformation that's coming out of that person's mouth. The need, and I hate to call it misinformation because, like I say, it's based on some set of facts, but the extrapolation part of it is where it goes wrong, right? That's where it goes when they extrapolate to be a larger point. Hey, well, these guys hated black people. They wanted to keep blacks from having guns. That's why, 3/5 of a man. And that's why, you got to have a property owner and we got to be white. And therefore, all guns are bad and all guns are against black people. In 2024, not exactly the case. Not exactly the case. I mean, I think, as we to fast forward along that timeline and, we're in a whole different reality today. A whole different reality. Now, does racism still exist? Absolutely. Right? Is systemic racism a thing? Does it still have impact on the community? It does. I firmly believe that. A lot of people would deny it, but I firmly believe that. And you can see it in the numbers throughout whatever you look at, right? You'll see disparities. And there's more to skin color that drives the disparity, right? I'll say that. But that notwithstanding, the need or the willingness of a person to embrace their right to be able to own and purchase and carry a firearm, should not be bothered with or impeded or, I guess I'll use the term, but how does it go? Oh, I'm forgetting the damn words now, but anyway. I'll look it up. But anyway, it should not. The people should have the ability to exercise that right as they see fit, right? And I would like to think that, along with the exercise of that right, that they understand a little bit of the history of it and why they have the right and why it remains important today.
Right. Yeah, and also why it is that the very principles that are stated inside of a lot of this philosophy negate the bias and the racism. They
Absolutely.
negate it. And even
Absolutely.
though we have the presence of it still, even
Yeah.
though we have white pockets of white dominance or entire white dominance, however it is that you want to look at it,
Right.
the principles themselves and the things that were created are here to serve evening the playing field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that was one of the things that, when you look at it holistically, that's one of the things that really made the Bill of Rights appealing to a large group, because it's a, hey, well, all of us can play in that playground, and we should all be able to play equally. Like I said, again, racism kept certain things, kept black people from participating in certain ways, and even other minorities to a lesser extent back in the day. But in 2024, you get to exercise your rights as you see fit, right? And if somebody tries to block you from exercising your rights, you get the opportunity to stand up for yourself and say, this is my right. I am able to do this. You don't need to be in my way. And the word I was looking for earlier, because the Second Amendment text, infringed, right?
Yeah. The people that are getting down with this whole, the only reason for the Second Amendment is to hold the slaves down. Those cats that have that idea, and then that leads them to, and that's why we need to arm up. They're going to be at odds with this podcast. These people.
Yeah.
You can see the interpretations.
Well, I think, clearly they're at odds, right? And that's intentional. In the most cynical version of that, they know that they are a cog in the machine that is built and that's been built up and being constantly fed, anti-gun rhetoric, right? And I hate to use that term because some people really, repel that terminology, because how's the old saying go? A hit dog is going to holler, right? and I get it. I totally get it, because I was that guy for a long time.